Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Running Wild Podcast. I'm your co-host, Rich. Alongside me, as always, my co-host, Runz.
Yes, sir.
All right, well, just want to wish everyone out there a Happy New Year as we get started on our best of 2016 episode. Apologies for the late release, but considering the holidays and my epic move from Brooklyn, forget about it. We were a little delayed this week, so we're going to do basically a review of 2016, and we will still be bringing you another episode this weekend as well. All right. So, what award do you want to start out with, Run?
I guess we could start off at the opener, and I'll go best theme song of 2016.
Whew. So this is gonna be a tough one. So, I gotta say, like, in contention, right? You have to have Glorious. No?
Of course.
All right. So, a personal favorite of mine. I love Drew Gulak's entrance in Evolve, the Taylor Dane Tell It to My Heart that he comes out to. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, to go with the independent route to, Riddles, just Regulators is always there to come out to. And, maybe my favorite just entrance is Grado with the, Live It Like a Prayer.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing to watch. But Nakamura is also in the running for me because it's just an amazing song.
Wow. All right, so let's see. I think we're really looking at between Nakamura and Rude?
I think it would have to be them because Grado's is more the presentation and the entrance. But, yeah, it comes down to them, and the Glorious thing is absurd. But I love Nakamura's song. Everything about it fits him perfectly, and just the vibe that comes with it is awesome.
And the fact that a crowd can actually do that.
Still sing it, right?
I'm probably going to mess it up, so I'm going to stop doing that right now. But so, would we be in agreement here, officially, for our first?
Chris Hero should also be in.
Oh, that's right.
Just a nomination, honorable mention. But I'm going to go with Nakamura.
All right. I'll agree. Nakamura is the recipient. He's going to be very... By the way, we didn't get a chance to get everyone on the show.
2016 Running Wild Podcast Award, Nakamura. Congratulations. Quite an achievement.
We'll be hearing, obviously, everybody who wins will be calling into the show to leave a little bit of a thank you to everybody. So you will hear those on the next episode. Or none of them will call.
I was going to say, I'm not even sure you can say that.
Yeah, that might not happen. But, we're just telling you it's not on this episode. All right, moving forward. So would you say maybe tag team would be next?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I would say nominees for Tag Team of the Year. Maybe I'm a little partial from the Evolve shows, but I really love Gargano and Ciampa do DIY, and I think that their split is going to be so perfect.
Just time out for 1 second. I'm watching the Ospreay and Ricochet match. Did you have a chance to at all see any of this?
The London match? Oh no! Oh yeah.
Whatever, the Scotland of the Dream Before Christmas. Literally, they were just Ospreay would go to the ring, do some absurd flip and land on one knee, and then Ricochet would just top it and do the same thing, and then they took turns for a minute. Absolutely absurd. Anyway.
So.
Jesus.
DIY.
Correct.
Young Bucks.
Correct, as just a staple.
I would say American Alpha.
Correct.
And I'm going to nominate Slater and Rhino just because they did have belts and they got a crazy following when they held the belts.
Somehow you are leaving out the winner of this award from the WWE side, and that is the Revival. They've been the best tag team in WWE this entire year, and everything they do is fantastic. But if we're going outside of WWE, the Young Bucks is the answer, and there is no other real nomination because they're on a level of their own.
I'm definitely going for Young Bucks, I think. Here, I mean, they have the IWGP Tag Team Championships. They have the Ring of Honor Tag Team Championships. They wrestle PWG. They're just...
I mean, like, the three companies that they wrestle for, they are the tag team champions. So, I mean, if there's anything you wanted to know, like, the two biggest companies outside of WWE, they are the tag team champions. So, that's all, they're that for a reason.
Man, some of their matches this year have just been unbelievable. And now, and then the foresight to plan this program with Matt Hardy, it's money, and that's what they're all about.
And I think, they, to a T, exemplify, the beauty of independent wrestling. It's two guys who were struggling to find themselves for a while, right, with getting released from TNA and the whole incident with Booker T and all that nonsense. And then they just said, fuck it, and let us just be us. And for a while, it was that attitude and just the suckets and the too sweets that had people, engaged. And then they just top their match every time that I see them. It's better. There's another layer added to it, and they just get better. And it's really fun to see. That's the thing with the Hardys is just them having a little bit of control and having fun in wrestling in 2016 and being able to expand all these windows or explore all these avenues,
Completely agree. These guys represent the idea of doing it yourself. They basically... Oh, wait, that's confusing with another team in this group. Okay, no, but all jokes aside, they really did it themselves. Their branding... They're larger in many ways than every company they're in because they're their
right.
own entity.
And the Bullet Club is huge.
And I'm telling you though, when Rise of the Terminators happens, when they go for that move and the entire crowd is just stomping and clapping, dun, 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 dun. Just the hair on my neck stands up. I really feel that is one of my favorite moments when I get to see them wrestle.
All right.
I know it's weird, but maybe it's just because I really like Terminator 2.
No, I mean, it is a fun part of their match, and, the different ways it gets broken up or things like that, but it's they're the best act, in wrestling, period. And, getting back to inside of WWE, I don't see how it couldn't be the Revival. The way that they are as a tag team and as heels is what helps Gargano and Ciampa be even, let the fans get behind them even more and that sort of thing.
Oh, they're Tully and Arn. They're the Brainbusters. Right. They're just that 1980s cut off the ring, just old school, hard-nosed tag team. There's nothing flashy about them. And I think that's the genius behind them altogether. All right.
Yeah, they're old school, and it works in an era where nobody else is doing that, So inside, I'll say the Revival. Outside, and probably overall, I'll say the Bucks.
All right. I'm going to go with Bucks for me completely. Just for me, they're the most entertaining tag team that I watch.
Yeah. And ever to me.
Yeah, and that's it. That's all it takes for me. As good as the Revival is, I can't take that away from them. The Bucks are almost better because they're the complete opposite. These two teams couldn't be more polar opposite right here. Right. Devoid of any real character is one side, and the other side is the most flash you can get.
I think we would be remiss if we didn't mention the New Day and the longest reigning champs and all that stuff aside. That's an awesome accomplishment, but they're entertaining as hell. But kind of just the same thing for me over and over.
They're clearly part of the 6-man, award that we're giving out
Teams that use the Freebird rules
in 2016.
Right.
Yeah, so, no, the New Day was and is spectacular. They've done just an amazing job of keeping things entertaining, even though many people felt that, and justly so, that the reason they held on for the title so long was to just get rid of that demolition record and then move on, and they dropped it a week after
immediately. Yeah.
So that kind of proved it. But they still made the entire year entertaining, even if they messed up my picks for about 7 pay-per-views.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess that was the end of that. I don't know why you just stopped talking. Yeah. So I guess we can go with our favorite show of the year. I guess.
Okay. So we're including everything that we've watched.
Yeah, I don't see why not.
Okay. So just put it out there, right? We're talking about Evolve shows. We're talking about Ring of Honor shows, WWE shows. I don't think TNA is even in the running, but I could mention that, I guess. But I don't think it's in the running.
No, the only thing that would be in the running is Total Nonstop Deletion, but that would just be for entertainment sake.
Yeah, it's a completely different reason.
Right.
So, to be fair, we're not talking about... We haven't watched enough, like, Beyond Wrestling or any of the smaller independent companies.
No, I haven't seen an entire AIW or Beyond show, so I can't put them in the category, All
right. So, let's see. I mean, in terms of WWE... I almost want to say, so I don't think it was SmackDown. I don't feel like, that's SummerSlam. I don't feel like it was WrestleMania. I really liked, what was last month's SmackDown pay-per-view? Because I can't remember all the names. Roadblock? No.
I wish I could tell you any WWE pay-per-view. I wish I could.
Are we kind of in agreement that WWE might not even be in the running?
I have one answer, and it's a trio of shows, and it's Battle of Los Angeles, and that was just basically from top to bottom, from the first night to the third night, insane wrestling and dream matchups that you want to see, and listing all the guys you're going to hear us talk about for Superstar of the Year and that sort of a thing. So it's those shows, and really just, the Evolve shows were great for similar reasons. But just for me, it's PWG.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and nominate or bring up my choices. I really liked Ring of Honor All-Star Extravaganza. I thought it was a really... Extravaganza. That's the one that had the Ladder Wars match.
Mm-hmm.
So, the only thing that I think makes that show, to me, not as strong was you ended up having Naito taking on Lethal, and the storyline made sense, but then you had Elgin taking on Cole. The thing is, I don't like when a match is kind of previously decided,
well, they all are, but yes, in our perspective,
yes, when it's very clear that one man is going to win, and I didn't think there was any chance that Elgin was going to take the title, and doing that in the title match to me is a little annoying.
I guess NXT Brooklyn with Joe Nakamura and DIY Revival, I think is up there, and I think. I think Final Battle is up there.
Yeah, Final Battle.
Final Battle helps because we were there, and that was pretty dope. But I again, from top to bottom, there wasn't anything that I was disappointed in. There were things that I had never seen before, and that sort of thing. So being in person, it might be Final Battle.
Yeah, I'd say for me, top two, it's kind of tough. Final Battle, and then I might have to go with the Evolve show. Is it 72 with Gulak and Thatcher in that crazy ring match?
I'm not sure which one it is, but yeah, I agree with that one too. Like that's
I've never seen anything like that.
no, and that was a great show, top to bottom as well. All of the Evolve shows are so good that it's hard for really any one of them to, stand out to me. But that's just me. They all stand out.
Yep, I completely agree. I mean, there were parts of, even the weekend of 68, 69. 69, it was great because Paige came out and attacked Gargano, and then, Riddle comes out, and Gargano passes him the torch, basically. Or, makes him like the flag bearer for Evolve. But at the same time, I liked 68 a lot because you had the great moment where that Gargano did get to give his send-off, speech.
Mm-hmm.
So even that weekend would be difficult for me to tell you which show I liked better. So I'm gonna to make it easier, I'm going to stick with Final Battle. I had a crazy good time there.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, there have been shows across the board. I've heard nothing but good things about AIW and beyond, etc. So, it's 2016 has been a year of great shows, and with all of this independent talent that has moved to WWE and continues to, just nonstop cycle through the independents, most of these shows are very good.
All right, so you want to move on to, let's see, match or female of the year?
We could do the match.
Okay, so match of the year. Now, I'm going to throw in that Gulak Thatcher match just because I've never seen anything like it. And it had me worried while I was watching it.
The two matches I think that I've enjoyed the most have been the DIY Revival 2 out of 3 falls. Mm-hmm. And I really enjoyed the Survivor Series.
That's right.
10-man, whatever, Raw vs. SmackDown match. I thought both of those were really good. The DIY Revival was just perfect. It's the best tag team match I've ever seen. So I think, by default, that has to be one of the top matches. And WWE.com actually ranked that the top match of the year, and that's pretty cool because, we saw Johnny Gargano, I don't know, a month before that, like in an independent show, and then he has the match of the year in WWE, so it's pretty cool.
I'm trying to think. There's got to be at least another match or two that were... Ladder Wars, I think for me might be one of the match of the year candidates.
I was too afraid watching it, but yes, I agree.
I was too, but at the same time, I really thought that... Daniels made that match.
We watch and discuss so much wrestling that unless we sat here and said match of the year in WWE, match of the year in New Japan, match of the year in ROH, there's stuff that's going to get left out. There are things that we're going to forget. New Japan has been just filled with match of the year candidates, and again, maybe we'll discuss some of those guys in our Superstar of the Year and those sorts of categories. But the Omegas and Okada and Naito and Tanahashi and just Kushida and Ospreay, Ricochet, the stuff that's been going on is just outrageous. And, it's really fun. It was a fun year of wrestling.
Oh, 100%. I think that's what... And I think part of the other thing is not looking at... See, I'm not going to participate in something like this and remove myself as a fan.
Right.
Because I think there are some times where there'll be a match that I'll like more because I'm a fan of a guy and he fought back and won the match or whatever, and that's what gets a pop over in me. I liked watching the Skrull Osprey match when Skrull saw Osprey do his patented flip off the ropes and whatever backflip and landing on his knee and stretching his arms out. So Skrull just bounces off the ropes and then just drops to one knee and puts his arms out. A moment like that for me can make a match, just because it's funny and it kind of gets me to forget about the fact that I'm watching something that, as we've discussed in the past, is obviously decided beforehand and discussed. But those moments like that make those matches that much more fun for me.
Yep.
And I'm not gonna. So I might see a match that's technically better, but pick a match that just got me going because it was emotionally more exciting, I guess.
Right, and I mean, that's the beauty of wrestling, is that you can have that exact opinion, and everyone has a different opinion and a different view of the guys that they like or what draws them into a match, and that's what makes something like this so difficult, because there are a million different ways you could look at a match or look at a superstar and get invested. So whatever it is that gets you invested, then that's perfectly fine to be your match of the year.
So would we say, if we're going to try to walk away from this with seemingly somebody, because it seems like we picked Final Battle for the show, would we be in agreement if we went with Revival DIY 2 out of 3?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so we've got show, match, tag team. Do you want to go with female wrestler?
Yeah, sure.
So I think this is an interesting category. I mean, just to throw a name out there that kind of spanned a lot of the companies that we watched. Deonna Purrazzo has wrestled everywhere. She's been on SmackDown, she's been on TNA, she's been on Ring of Honor, she's been on WrestlePro in Brooklyn. I mean, she's literally made it a point to try to wrestle something like 100 shows this year, and I think has surpassed that goal. So she hasn't made it yet, and she's definitely not. If we had a rising star female wrestler of the year, I would almost have to pick her, because I think by this time next year, she's going to be consistent somewhere, and I think it's going to be a big deal. But if we're going to go kind of traditionally, I'm going to pick the same person that I drafted very high this summer when we did our mock draft. And I was mocked for it. But I'm going to go with Charlotte Flair.
I think you're just misremembering Rosenberg, but that's okay.
If you actually if you go to the draft episode, I picked her very high, maybe second. I think I did something crazy because I think you took somebody that I wanted, so I just went crazy.
All right.
Anyway. Like the time I drafted Matt Stafford when I couldn't get Drew Brees and destroyed my season on my first pick.
Jeez. Yeah. So, there's one answer, and it's Charlotte. I agree with what you said about Deonna Purrazzo, being a superstar on the rise. There are people saying she was La Luchadora, but I don't know that will play out that way, when she's unmasked or whatever the case is. But, even if so, then that's fine. But Charlotte is the best thing going in women's wrestling today, and I don't see that slowing down really anytime soon. It's cool to watch Ric Flair all over again. This is it's pretty crazy to see. So just a female version of him and be so good, and just every time, like the same with the Young Bucks, she adds another wrinkle, she adds another layer. Her character just continues to develop and get better. I'm interested in the feuds with Bayley and Sasha. I care about them more because I want Charlotte to lose so much, and that's a tribute to how good she is as a heel. you can talk about the Sashas and the Baileys and whoever else, but it's Charlotte and only Charlotte.
She's unbelievable, and the truth of the matter is WWE. I don't watch a lot of TNA, so I'm not going to try to be unfair there. But Ring of Honor, I don't feel has properly really rolled out the division the way they should, so that any of those people, any of the women in that division can be even considered for this. Because I think part of what's going on there is they're not having that consistent exposure.
Right. It's just the exposure, yeah.
So that's one reason why there aren't more names from that company that I would include here. But Charlotte's been amazing to watch. I love how she gets obnoxiously loud. Everything she does is just so good. My wife hates her so much, and that to me is the mark of somebody who is extremely good. Where my wife just starts to doesn't know who they are, and then just starts to hate them. And Charlotte's really good at what she does.
I agree.
All right, so what do we have left?
Feud of the year?
Feud of the year. All right. So, one of the longest feuds of the year was Steve Corino versus BJ Whitmer, which is now not going to end, it seems. No, but let's think. So...
I mean, you have Sasha and Charlotte, Dolph and The Miz, DIY and The Revival,
Titus and Vince McMahon.
Skrull and Ospreay, if you watch some of that stuff. You have the New Japan stuff. With Omega and Okada. Yeah, Nakamura and Joe.
Adam Cole and Jay Lethal, or Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly?
Yeah, maybe. Right? To me, yeah, I've been most entertained by Sasha and Charlotte and the way that's played out in the matches that they've had. So I'll roll with that.
All right, see, I'm up there with, for me, okay, when Adam Cole and the Young Bucks shaved Jay Lethal's head, I really like the Bullet Club. I think they're very charismatic and they're great in the ring, and I want to root for them. But my God, I can't remember the last time I was legitimately, except for when Kevin Owens attacks Sami Zayn, because then I get very angry. But I was so angry when I saw what Cole did, and I wanted Lethal to just beat him so bad, and I had no notion in my mind that Cole would actually win the match. And then he won the match. And I remember sitting there just shocked, quiet for a few minutes. And I think that speaks volumes about how invested I was in that feud. And I was really into the O'Reilly Cole feud, but something about it's the hair cutting, man. You cut a man's hair, you gotta go. There needs to be revenge for that. You don't just get away with some kind of nonsense like that. So I'm actually gonna go with Cole Lethal.
Yeah, I can't necessarily disagree, but I also enjoyed the Sasha and Charlotte feud just as much.
All right, so so there's co-winners for this one. What do we say?
I mean, we've been each had one, pretty much most of them.
All right. So moving on, we would have Superstar of the Year, right?
Well, we have the Rookie of the Year. I guess we can discuss first. Doesn't necessarily have to be someone whose first year it is wrestling, but just more so someone who you really got exposed to this year that is just, really high up there on the list. And the nominees for Rookie of the Year and the nominees for, Independent Superstar of the Year might overlap a little bit, but for me, there are two guys in Matt Riddle and Marty Scurll who I fell in love with, the first time that I saw them, and I've they've just gotten better every time I've seen them, and I can't say that I've ever been let down by either one. And 2017 seems to be poised for a breakout from both of them.
So I'm going to throw in there two guys that before this year I hadn't really seen a lot of, and I think they're both poised for pretty big 2017s. Leo Rush and Jason Kincaid. I just think that Rush he's what? This guy's 22 years old or something crazy
now,
like that?
This to me would be a separate award for just, guys who are going to be on this list in 2017, and
okay.
I would put an Ethan Page right there with that Leo Rush and Jason Kincaid, because just guys who have some exposure, but not as much as they're going to have, this time next year. And I think, I was going to mention this, like I said, separately, but like Ethan Page, I think is just poised to be everywhere in 2017, and beyond that. And I think well deserved, but I completely agree with Kincaid and Rush. And, I do think they're also poised to be names that in 2017 and, the future.
I mean, it's crazy, Kincaid's going to be with Evolve now, so it'll be interesting to see what they do with him. Rush, I had only seen in Ring of Honor, and then I saw his work. I believe it was House of Hardcore I actually watched on FlowSlam. And then I followed up and saw some more of his CZW stuff. He wrestles this really weird heel. Like he's got like veins painted on the side of his head, and his signature mohawk is actually like gelled down, and he comes out like in a white suit jacket, and he's creepy and he's not fun. and it's amazing, and what I also like to see is heel work isn't just about the way you walk to the ring, right? It's the way you wrestle in the ring. You got to tone down some of your acrobatics because that excites fans, and you don't want to do that if you're trying to really be a good heel. And his offense is basically acrobatic, so seeing him change in style, I thought was just whoa.
Right, and I think this can help transition us right back to the Rookie of the Year. Is I just saw Will Ospreay do the same thing in his last couple of matches that I watch on FlowSlam. He's been a heel, and watching him do his high flying stuff, but make it look more vicious and do it with this just like smug look on his face and taunt the crowd, really opened up a whole new, view for me of Will Ospreay. And, him, Riddle, and Skrull to me are just, they all win because I can't pick one of them. They've been three guys that I've just been exposed to, and like I said, immediately fell in love with what they do.
I have one more word to say about this category. Bro.
Right.
That's going to be my pick. If we're basically kind of dividing this into guys who are starting and are going to be there in this category for us next year, and separating them like the Pages, like the Kincaids, like the Rushes, and separating them from these other three, as much as I love Marty Scurll. And by the way, just a shout out to Gentleman Jack Gallagher with his amazing umbrella work this past week on WWE 205 Live. It was... I was like, wow, Marty Scurll must be jealous right now because this guy is good with an umbrella. But anyway, yeah, as much as I love Scurll, Riddle's been unbelievable. And so is Ospreay. But sometimes as much as I love and appreciate the stuff that Ospreay does, there are times where I don't enjoy it all the time. I get a little bit tired, and I don't feel that way with anything that I see Riddle do.
What?
And his response to Drew Galloway, I've traveled halfway around the world. He's like, bro, chill. It was just magical.
And I think to transition us again, for me, this kind of fits perfectly for Rookie of the Year and Indie Superstar of the Year is Johnny Gargano for me, because he's a guy that, yeah, I heard of him. Yeah, I watched some of his early things with Dragon Gate and that sort of a thing, but I never really liked him there. And when I got to see him this year and see where he was and got to really watch him more and be around, be in the building for his matches, I really became a big fan of his. And I think the stuff that he did this last year on the Indies and now transitioning right into NXT is phenomenal and goes to show how good he is.
I mean, I'm an absolute... The minute you mention his name, I'm jumping on board 100%. I would have brought him up anyway, but he's a smaller guy. He's got that fighting spirit, and I just really love watching his work. It was super, super amazing to be able to watch him evolve, and the way he went out, making sure that he left the company in a strong place by helping elevate Riddle and at the same time elevating Paige. He made, in many ways, he made 2 stars the night he left. And
yeah.
I think I don't think there's actually anything more you can say to represent the type of wrestler he is, the type of company man he is, that he didn't make his last moment in Evolve about him. He made it about Evolve.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think that speaks volumes to just the wrestler he is, the person that he is. It's not like we hang out, but he seems like a stand-up guy. And that's it doesn't even seem to be just a part of his persona, which is part of his persona, right? He's just legitimately, he could have decided to do things differently. He could have said, let's do that ending on 68 and then let my last moment be my send-off speech at 69. And he didn't do that. And I loved watching him in Evolve. I was almost a little upset that he went to WWE because I'm never going to sit front row at WWE. I'm never going to be able to just like at Evolve 68, dap him up and turn to the camera like, oh my god, like a schoolgirl, because that's just not going to happen anymore. And by and large, I don't do that. I'm not somebody who kind of freaks out that way. But
if you say so.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. So I'll end my love letter there. But
some other guys that are nominated for me would have to be Kenny Omega in New Japan, Chris Hero, everything, everywhere he's done, been on the independents that he has killed it this year, and he might be my winner, but this not necessarily indies, but Broken Matt Hardy has to be in the running and probably is the favorite, because the things that guy has done this year as a character have changed everything. It's WWE has used things, every company has used things. He's blown up everywhere. He's everywhere on the independents. He's working his ass off from everything I hear, and that's amazing to see a guy like that who struggled with his own demons, whatever the case, but was such a big name in WWE, had such a nice run, did so many things that now he's working hard and passing along that knowledge to guys on the indies and, working with the Bucks. And the guy has been just pure gold all year.
Yeah, he's... if you would have told me this time last year that you'll go to Final Battle next year and the biggest pop of the night will be a TNA superstar,
It will be Matt Hardy. Like, forget about TNA superstar. It will be Matt Hardy.
I would have said you're crazy.
There's no way. No way,
but
man.
It's just unbelievable, and
think about, I wanted to touch on this as well, so a little bit of a spin-off category, but just Chris Jericho and Matt Hardy are two guys who have been around forever, and the list of Jericho and the gift of Jericho and all of that and the Broken Hardy stuff, reinvigorated both of them, to no end.
It's so crazy. Those
Like,
guys.
we me and a couple of friends do a fantasy pool, whatever. We pick a bunch of FanDuel teams. So we always make lists of our favorite players. Every single week I do, oh, you know what that is? Oh, yeah, you just made the list. I do it to kids in school all the time. It's just something that has spun off into a world of its own.
I made the list this morning, just
Yep.
so everybody knows.
Yep.
Just for using the word acquaintances. So,
Yep. Dear acquaintances.
all right. So let's go with. Okay, I'm gonna go with Johnny Gargano.
All right. I think I'm going to go with Hero. I wasn't a fan of his as recently as 6 months ago. And then I've just seen everything he's done and how he's busting his ass everywhere. And it all flipped around. And that's a tribute to what he has done this year. So I'm going to give it to Hero.
He only loses the category because instead of just giving me a fist bump, he gave me his forearm to my forearm really.
Well, that's what he does.
Really aggressively. I didn't know how hard he did this, and it hurt my bone. So he just loses 1 point.
He hurt my bone.
Enough for Gargano to take the victory in this one. All right. So, and then as a ancillary or kind of a subcategory, most entertaining, I think that we're in agreement that it would go to Mr. Matt Hardy.
Right.
All right, so then that leaves us with Superstar of the Year, if I'm right?
Yeah, I believe so.
All right. So, wow, how do you even begin here?
Well, there are two answers for me, and I'm going to decide on one by the end of this, but they happen to be both of the champions in the WWE right now, and it's AJ Styles and it's Kevin Owens. And I'm leaning very heavily towards AJ Styles because he came in literally last year at the Royal Rumble, so it's just been about a full year, and everything he's done has been really good, and his run is really going well right now. He is the WWE champion, not any Universal or Global or whatever Galaxian champion. So he is the company's champion, and I think that says a lot, and they're definitely putting a lot of faith in him. So I'm interested to see what happens with his feud with Cena and if they give him that spot of Taker, somehow, but it'll be interesting to see. And if that's the case, I think this just solidifies everything I'm saying here because that shows how much faith they really have in this guy.
Interesting. So I love Kevin Owens' work when he's not harassing his former best friend, Sami Zayn. I love what he's been doing. I think that he just hasn't
he hasn't been on his own enough.
Yeah, that's part of it. I mean, I think that it would be difficult to have heels as champions on either show that can both back up everything they say. It would be a little bit repetitive,
Mm-hmm.
So that's why you end up having Owens have this, I need my friend, and I cheat more to win, where Styles just kind of straight messes you up, and that's how he's the winner. But at the same time, then you have to remember earlier this year that the work that he did with Cena and how the club kind of helped him, along the way.
Yeah, exactly. The guy came in and beat John Cena, twice or two or three times?
Beat John Cena.
He's a TNA guy. Legitimately, there is no other person who solidifies TNA more than AJ Styles. He is TNA. And he came to WWE, and he beat WWE. He beat the man that WWE has, and now he is the WWE champion.
Yeah, it's got to be. I mean, as much as, in many ways, Kevin Steen, was Ring of Honor for a little bit, he never got to hold the world title there. So he doesn't personify the company as much. Maybe the way that Daniel Bryan did, or Seth Rollins did, in that way. But AJ Styles is legitimately just TNA. And when I think of Superstar of the Year, when we were first mentioning it, I was thinking about AJ, and it kind of solidified for me when I remembered that 450 off of the apron through the table against Ambrose. That was just... we've seen more ridiculous things than that this year, but it reminds you that he can do that.
Right. He because he doesn't do that kind of stuff, and when he does it so effortlessly, and because he doesn't do it all the time, he doesn't seem like that fluid and that high of a flyer. But man, he can do everything, and it's pretty awesome because I love that guy in TNA. He was the reason why I watched TNA for so long, because he was so good. And to see that they didn't ruin it, and they didn't like, oh, this guy's from TNA, we don't, nah. I'm so glad that the stuff he did in ROH and the stuff he did in New Japan is just what's skyrocketing him here. It opened up a whole new world for his character and for what he does in the ring, and it's been awesome to watch.
Yeah, I'm just excited going forward and seeing what they're going to do with him this year. It's
right. That's the best part of this. Like, all these guys that we just mentioned could be in WWE and NXT and on Raw in 2017. And, let's not forget about Finn Balor, because he would be in this conversation if he didn't get injured. And so when he comes back, that adds a whole new wrinkle into everything. And Nakamura, Joe, all these guys in NXT, all deserve some recognition and some credit here for everything they've been doing. And it's like, I've said it 5 times, I think, already today. It was an amazing year of 2016 wrestling. We've talked about it since the beginning of the show. Like, there are people who I got into wrestling like a year or two ago, some friends, and they would always be like, oh, well, like, they got more into some New Japan stuff. And they're like, oh, well, you think this guy will go to WWE? Like, hell no. Like, are you crazy? Yeah, if they go, he's going to be in Kaientai. Yeah, what a joke. And now you see the Joe and the Owens and Styles and Nakamura and all of these guys going and having success and being mostly the same person that they were on the indies or in other companies and just rolling with it. That never happened. The Cruiserweight Classic didn't exist. The UK stuff, none of this existed ever. Like, if you ask anyone about any of this last year, they'll tell you you're nuts. And everything happened this year, and it happened like nothing. It's amazing.
Totally, for me as a wrestling fan, and I'm not sure if that's because we're doing this podcast a lot more, or because the writing, or because you convinced me to go to Evolve shows, or whatever it is. I can't remember, and that would mean that there might be years when I was a lot younger and I was really into it and I had a great year of watching wrestling and enjoying it. But for me, 2016 has been the most fun I've had as a wrestling fan in my entire life. And I'm 34 now.
Yeah, like I couldn't tell you ever when I could name like 5 independent companies, Beyond, AIW, PWG, Evolve, where like if they come to my town, I'm going. Like, that's never been a thing. Like, I've never. It wasn't a realistic option, and now that's there, and everything is tying into WWE or ROH or New Japan. All of these things are overlapping, and you're seeing Riddle versus Cobb and PWG and AIW and Evolve, and it's just makes everything feel like one big, company.
It's insane. And so I'm trying to think a couple of more things we should mention. Just also, very special thank you to everybody this year who came on our show. And 2016, I think, was great for us in that way, too, having wrestlers actually come on the show and talk to us. It's kind of absurd. And
right. I mean, we've definitely taken some steps that we. I don't want to say dreamed about, but that we discussed at the beginning. It would be crazy if we got people to come on and people to send us questions and blah blah blah. That sort of thing is cool and weirdly rewarding to see that stuff you've done, or people care about what you say sometimes, or that sort of a thing.
Yeah, 2016 has just been a year where I think we both looked at each other and said, what's going on in this world?
Times.
What is happening? How is this happening to us?
Let alone the real world things that happened in 2016. That was just what the hell. But wrestling, it been a year like literally never before in wrestling, and I can only assume that 2017 and beyond will just continue to grow and be even bigger and better.
And speaking of 2017 and kind of starting the year off right, we have our contest going. So remember, if you're looking for 2 second row seats to Michael Elgin's Glory Pro show on February 19th, all you have to do is add us and make sure you include the hashtag BigMikeVersus, VS. And then mention somebody that you'd like to see him go up against. You'll automatically be in the running for the tickets, and we're going to be revealing the winners by the second week of February. So you still have some time, but make sure that you guys get those tweets out there so you can qualify. All right. Is there anything that I'm leaving out that you wanted to mention before we get out of here for this year-end review?
No, that's pretty much it.
All right. Well, just want to remind you guys that we're brought to you in partnership with pwponderings.com, rohworld.com, and lastwordonprowrestling.com. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, SoundCloud, and Google Play. You can also make sure you go over to our website, runningwildpodcast.com, where you can see all our past episodes up there and the write-ups for those episodes. Also, make sure that you send any comments or questions over to runningwildpodcast@gmail.com. We love having trivia. We hadn't had some in a while, so just make sure you send some over. You can follow us on Twitter at RunningWildLWOS, and we're on Facebook at Running Wild on Wrestling. Make sure you subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes. We shockingly don't get paid for this, but we'd appreciate the feedback nonetheless. And with all of that out of the way, just want to remind you guys and wish you a very happy 2017. And we're hoping that just like this podcast, your year is just too sweet.